Welcome back to Reading Club. So today I'm going to read you My Weird School, Mrs. Cooney is Loony, Chapter 7 and Chapter 8. Chapter 7, The Truth About Mrs. Cooney. It was recess the next day. Me and Ryan and Michael were playing on the monkey bars when Andrea and your little steady buddy Emily came over, like we were friends or something. I know what you boys are up to, Andrea said. None of you has been sick. You just wanted to go to the nurse's office because you're in love with Mrs. Cooney. That's a lie, I lied. Why does Andrea have to know everything? And why doesn't a garbage truck fall on her head? Mrs. Cooney's busy enough with kids who are really sick, Andrea said. She doesn't have time for fakers. It's none of your business, Andrea, I said. My mother is vice president of the PTA, Andrea said. She could get you kicked out of school for pretending to be sick. Yeah, said Emily, who agrees with everything Andrea says. You're not sick. You're just in love with Mrs. Cooney. Well, I was in love with Mrs. Cooney, Ryan said, but not anymore. What? Said me and Michael. Mrs. Cooney is too weird, said Ryan. I couldn't marry her. What's weird about her? Asked Andrea. We told Andrea all about all the strange things Mrs. Cooney did. I told her that Mrs. Cooney had me hop on one foot and cluck like a chicken while balancing a ruler on my nose. Michael told Andrea that Mrs. Cooney had him stand in a cardboard box and try to wiggle his ears. Ryan told Andrea that Mrs. Cooney had him bounce a balloon on his head while he tried to sing the ABC song backward. And she put a bag of frozen veggies on my head, added Michael. Well, Andrea and Emily were shocked. They couldn't believe it. That's not what nurses are supposed to do, said Emily. They're supposed to take your temperature and give you medicine to help you feel better. Maybe Mrs. Cooney isn't a nurse at all, Michael said. Did you ever think of that? What do you mean? Asked Emily, looking all worried. Maybe she's a fake nurse, said Michael. Maybe she kidnapped the real Mrs. Cooney and locked her up in an airplane hangar somewhere. Stuff like that happens all the time, you know, I added. Andrea sat down on a swing and rested her chin on her hands. I've been giving this a lot of thought, she said. People are not always who they seem to be. I hate to say this, but I've come to the conclusion that Mrs. Cooney is no nurse. So what is she? Emily asked. I have reason to believe, Andrea said, that Mrs. Cooney is a spy. We all gasped. A spy? Asked Michael. You're talking about the woman I love, I said. Andrea got up and paced back and forth from the swings to the seesaw. She looked like one of those detectives in a police movie. Think about it, she said. Mrs. Cooney is always gathering information on everybody. That's what spies do. She talks in a whisper, like she doesn't want anyone to hear her secrets. And she always wears that nurse's uniform. So, Michael asked. School nurses don't wear nurses' uniforms, Andrea said. They wear regular clothes like everybody else. Wait a minute, I said. You're saying that Mrs. Cooney can't be a real nurse because she wears a nurse's uniform? Exactly, Andrea said. It's the perfect disguise. I don't believe it, I said. AJ, you're blinded by love, Andrea said. Mrs. Cooney probably came to our school to spy on us, and she's going to sell the information to some bad guy who's going to try and take over the world. We've got to do something, said Emily, and she went running off the playground. You don't know anything about spies, Ryan told Andrea. I've seen lots of spy movies. Spies always wear trench coats and carry briefcases and drive cool cars. They're always slinking around in the dark and looking in file cabinets. and they've got all kinds of cool spy gadgets. Michael was right. I've seen a lot of spy movies too. You watch her, Andrea said. You'll see I'm right. It was hard to believe that Mrs. Cooney might really be a spy. But after all, Andrea is a genius who knows everything. She's right about everything else. Maybe she was right about this too. Chapter 8, Spying on a Spy. We decided the only way to find out if Mrs. Cooney was really a spy would be to spy on her. So we watched her like a hawk the whole next day. Andrea listened to Mrs. Cooney's conversations whenever she talked with the teachers. Me and Ryan snuck in the nurse's office during recess. Emily pretended to be sick so she could gather more information. Finally, when school let out at 3 o'clock, we got together at the monkey bars in the playground to compare notes. There's a cabinet in the nurse's office that's locked at all times, Emily said, and I saw the word poison on a bottle inside. Poison? Michael said. Spies are always poisoning people. And she took my temperature with that weird thing she sticks in your ear, said Emily. How do we know that thing is really a thermometer? Asked Ryan. Maybe it's a secret brain scope. She has all kinds of spy gadgets, said Ryan, like those machines she uses to test our eyesights and hearing every year. Maybe she really uses them to transmit secret-coded messages. What about that tape measure thing she's got? I asked. The one where she pushes a button and the whole tape goes flying into her hand? That thing is cool. Mrs. Cooney is always weighing and measuring things, Emily said. She's obsessed, said Andrea. She's constantly gathering information about us and writing it all down. Like a spy, Michael added. You know, when I was in her office today, Emily said, she told me she isn't allowed to give kids medicine. That's true, Michael said. She'll give you a cough drop or some crackers. That's it. Once she had me gargle with salt water, Ryan said. A lot of good that did. Or she'll put a bag of frozen vegetables on your head, said Michael. What kind of nurse can't give medicine? Emily asked. A fake one, Michael said. A spy nurse. This morning I saw her standing in the hallway, Andrea said, and she was whispering into the phone. She was probably passing secrets to that bad guy who wants to take over the world, said Ryan. Wow, the evidence against Mrs. Cooney was mounting. Maybe she really was a spy. We've got to do something, Emily said. So that's the end of this channel. I hope you enjoyed my readings, and if you did, please click many likes and subscribe Reading Club. So I'll come back later with a new and improved channel. Bye everybody, see you later.